100 years. That is such an astonishing feat for an animated studio like Disney, a production company that birthed the concept of feature-length animated family movies for everyone to embrace and watch together. Without Walt Disney's imagination and devotion to telling stories, the genre would never be as celebrated as it is now by many movie lovers and experts, nor would its competitors try to capture that magic for themselves, and even succeeding at that. Throughout the company's lifespan, multiple animated musicals, including live-action ones, have laid a cultural impact on the world unlike anything the world has seen in decades, with beloved stories and iconic songs that are loved by any age. Flash forward to the present, and the company has become the antithesis of what Walt aspired to bring to the world, becoming a greedy, quality-lost, blackened heart of a company that has lost millions of subscribers on Disney+, the complete lack of trust from parents and shareholders due to the company's erroneous politics and double standards, creative prowess, and money from one box office failure after another. I've shared my thoughts on Disney's fall from grace in the past, whether it be from written reviews, posts on social media, or just video reviews for all of you. And yet, no matter how many times I do it, I always have some level of optimism and hope that the company can revert back to its old traditional ways, reverting back to what we once loved about it and bringing everyone together again. And what else can bring families together again other than another traditional animated musical? For Disney's 100th anniversary, their latest animated film, Wish, sets its sights on telling the story of how the wishing star, referenced in Pinocchio, came to be. The directing reins were given over to Fawn Veerasunthorn, who directed Raya and the Last Dragon, that I was kind of lukewarm on. And more importantly, the dynamic Disney duo of Chris Buck and Jennifer Lee are also involved. Two filmmakers who I have the utmost respect for. And if you guys aren't familiar with those names, maybe these two movies might refresh in your noggin. So you have a team that is familiar with Disney animated musicals who are capable of writing solid stories, and it's going for the technique of combining 2D with 3D animation, harkening back to the company's magical history, mixing the old with the new. After watching the movie, the end results were anything but magical. It honestly disappoints me to say this, and it may sound like I hate on Disney. I don't. I want the company to be at their best. And it's not also because I'm just a heartless person who hates on everything. But in all legitimacy, Wish broke my heart. More descriptively, it is the embodiment of modern Disney. Rather than holding their glass up high, accomplishing a goal they set for themselves while paying homage to a bygone era of cherished animated family movies, it is instead a lazy amalgamation of half-assed storytelling and themes, banal characters, and endless references to films we've seen long ago that it plays itself as more of an advertisement for Disney than an actual animated classic for Disney. Wish features our main protagonist, Asha, a sharp-witted young girl who aspires to be an apprentice for the much-beloved King Magnifico, who has the ability to possess and grant wishes for all of the peasants in Rosas. However, when she's granted the opportunity of a lifetime, she begins to realize that Magnifico isn't who she thought he was, as he's more of a corrupt man stealing wishes for his own particular needs. Asha, in an attempt to make things right for the people of Rosas and to unveil Magnifico's villainy, makes a wish upon a star. All of a sudden, a little magical star ascends from the sky and befriends Asha along the way to help her on her quest. An issue that I immediately caught from the get-go was this. One of the main things that I have always appreciated about Lee and Buck's work was that their characterizations felt so incredibly personal and intimate. And what I mean by that is that they wrote their characters as if they were real, as if they were genuine people that they knew or we might have known from one time or another. And it's one of the reasons why children, friends, and families connected so much with Anna and Elsa. There was so much care and consistency in making these two not just relatable, but compelling to their core audiences with complicated motivations, authentic behaviors, and heartwarming arcs that worked under the two Frozen movies' through lines. But in the case of Asha, she barely resembles anything of a main character that audiences want to root for. Sure, Ariana DeBose is vocally charming as Asha, and she has incredible range in her singing in specific tracks of the movie. Her character just boils down into wanting to do the right thing just because it's the right thing to do. She's eccentric and quirky, just like Moana, Anna, and Rapunzel, but lacks any other dimension outside of those characteristics. And she never goes through any ounce of development, she never makes a mistake, and she doesn't resolve an arc that audiences can be satisfied with. It also doesn't help much that her goat companion Valentino, voiced by veteran voice actor Alan Tudyk, only exists and nothing more to serve as an obnoxious, one-note comedic relief side character in which barely any of the humor lands, and he hardly contributes in anything of substance for most of the movie. With audiences in the past gravitating towards heroes and heroines, they've always gotten a great kick out of villains that stole the spotlight. Disney's lineup of evildoers were second to none, wielding devilish charisma and menacing intelligence to pose as a main threat for our main heroes. After a series of pretty divisive twist villains, poorly written ones that we're supposed to sympathize with, and even the absence of a single bad guy through their past installments, Disney returns to the old ways of traditional bad guys with King Magnifico, voiced by Chris Pine. And he's practically the best part of this entire movie. Pine has handled roles in the past that were magnified by his presence and his bravado, and in Wish, his voice work oozes with extravagance and charm. And once he erupts into being straight up diabolical, his over-the-top performance doesn't let up, and he has a blast with every scene and every line that he's given. He's also not afraid to go for that approach while singing as well. The villain's song, on the other hand, is much to be desired, but more on the songs later. However, there's this one query that I have after watching this movie, and while hearing his motivations, this might sound unusual, but hear me out. Why is he made to be the main villain in the first place? I understand that the movie writes him to be a 2-bit manipulative sorcerer, but if you honestly think about it, his dubious intentions of preserving and not granting all of the wishes to the peasants isn't that villainous at all. It's actually kind of responsible and justified for him to do. With one of the examples that he exchanges with Asha being a tragic backstory that he had to deal with, which never comes up again in the movie. In fact, if you made him not the villain, there was a way in this movie to make the plot so much better than it is. With her being an apprentice, have Asha make a mistake by releasing all of the wishes to the kingdom, and have her and Magnifico work together to figure out a solution. But instead, Magnifico is written to be a bad guy because the movie just needs a bad guy. We all comfortably acknowledge what Walt Disney Animated Studios is capable of doing through their animation department for generations on end. From their revolutionary, graceful, hand-drawn animation to their beautiful computer-generated animation that still holds up today. This time, like I said before, Wish is aiming for the approach of combining the 3D computer-generated technology that they've used for the past decade and the 2D artwork that Disney has been known for since Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. It looks quite impressive in the first act, but as the film continues, the magic tricks were out there welcome. There is too much emphasis that is being put on the 3D models, and the hand-drawn effect is treated like an afterthought, only being used with a handful of second-long snippets and background effects that could have been easily done with the animation that they've used since the revival era. There are television shows that exist right now and movies that came out this year with a significantly lower budget that have so much immaculate attention to detail to the characters and their movements, and they phenomenally found a way to bridge those two animated dimensions together. Heck, Disney has experimented with this before with Paperman, one of their animated shorts. And the shell-shading black and white approach to the environment and characters were handled magnificently. Wish has a budget of $200 million, and the results are so underwhelming it makes you wonder why they even bothered to do it. Years ago, I reviewed Frozen 2, and one of the things that I thought the movie did so well was with its song numbers. 4 years later, despite Jennifer Lee and Chris Buck returning to do another animated Disney musical, for the songwriting, it's not given to Christina and Robert Lopez, a couple who know how to write great animated show tunes, 2 of which won awards. Instead, it's given to Benjamin Rice, who I've never even heard of, and Julia Michaels, whose credentials are known for writing songs for Justin Bieber, Selena Gomez, Demi Lovato, and Gwen Stefani. Yeah, let's cut to the chase. These songs are not good. Each of the numbers feel like they're trying to ape off of the upbeat show tune orchestration from Lin-Manuel Miranda's work, except songs like Welcome to Rosas, At All Costs, and Knowing What I Know don't have any memorable melodies, hooks, or catchy choruses, and the potentially anthemic tune of This Wish, I'm a Star, and the villain song This Is the Thanks I Get are so formulaic and repetitive that you can just look at the song title before seeing the movie and immediately you can think how each of them will play out. But perhaps the most inane element of this cursed, misguided movie is the fact that the story is muddled through the execution of one of the most puerile, childish messages ever conceived in a Disney movie. And it's about as delusional as Raya and the Last Dragon's message of just trust people, including total strangers and those that have caused you great guilt or trauma, and everything will be a-okay. What we are taught this time is just keep wishing and everything good will come to you. The reason why this message is so adolescent is because A, it doesn't apply to the real world, and B, most of the wishes that Magnifico keeps are things that could be easily done by the villagers themselves. One of them is a woman wishing to make dresses for all of the women in Rosas, and especially Asha's grandfather, who wants to inspire the citizens through his musical talent. The problem is that both of these people were already capable of accomplishing these desires themselves, particularly Asha's grandfather, who was already good at playing acoustic, that the idea of them wasting their wish for something that they're already good at is baffling. Ironically, it's actually the antithesis of the message in Disney's Cinderella. If you keep working hard and maintain an optimistic attitude, good things will come to you. Everyone can relate and be drawn to a satisfactory message like that. But how can anyone be attached to a message like in Wish? There's a slim chance that just by sitting there idly, wishing for your aspiration to just happen coincidentally, is going to unfold. The commitment and extra effort that you put into that passion is what's going to make your wish come true. For example, in Disney's case, Walt himself, along with other employees, sure, they wished for Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs to be successful, but they didn't just do it just by sitting there wishing for it to happen. Through their endless effort towards that project, they made it into one of the most celebrated films of the 30s. Same thing also applies to some of the creators of this movie. Jennifer Lee and Chris Buck didn't just wish for Frozen to be a cultural phenomenon. They may have hoped for it to be successful, but through excruciating dedication, they made it into what is considered to be a classic. It's astonishing to me that we're at this point where we're delivering these types of messages not to just adults, but to children who dream to be like said adults. In the words of Theoden from Lord of the Rings, how did it come to this? If y'all remember my movie review of the Super Mario Brothers movie, of how the Easter eggs and references overshadowed what was basically a paper-thin, empty plot, if you thought Disney wouldn't stoop to that level, well, I hate to say this, but they referenced their classic material in the most blatant, forehead-slapping display I have ever seen. Examples include on-screen Easter eggs from their classic cartoons, like the poisonous apple from Snow White, a character who dresses exactly like Peter Pan, Asha maintaining a cloak, cape, and magic wand just like Cinderella's fairy godmother, Asha's 7 diverse friends who are hardly characters themselves are all just a blatant reference to the 7 dwarves, with them matching their outfit colors and just shouting out their character traits like, I'm an introvert, I'm grumpy, I'm sleepy. Take a wild guess as to who the dopey one looks like. The cartoon star would fly over the castle of Rosas at the end of the film in the same way that Tinkerbell did at the opening Disney logos. Or shamefully enough, quotes or references that fans will recognize from films like The Little Mermaid, Peter Pan, and Mary Poppins. And just when you thought that watching a 9-minute long Disney animated short before the movie starts didn't placate to your childhood nostalgia, Wish goes out of its way to show in the end credits starry outlines of your favorite characters in chronological order, up until the post-credit scene where Asha's grandfather plays on the guitar the film's version of When You Wish Upon a Star. I can't even consider Wish to be Disney's version of Frankenstein's monster, because at least the monster in Frankenstein has massive intelligence. This movie is like a sorrowed husk stuck in limbo, created without any semblance of passion by its makers. An animated project that felt like it was made by a focus group of a bunch of people doing the mads just to cater to the shareholders while tugging on your Disney heartstrings. And it's not like I was going to dog on this movie. I truly had hopes that this was going to be a terrific film that would bring us back to the good old days, especially since two filmmakers who I respect and admire are a part of the project. Even after all of my grievances, what I said it isn't out of malice, because Disney, there is still time for you to grow up. There is still time for Disney to rewrite the error of their ways to avoid becoming almost a zombie company, to write original stories that captivate the hearts of the young and the old, to create characters that millions could even dream of meeting or to be by their side, to establish villains that are taken seriously with villainous songs that send shivers down your spine, to send positive family-friendly messages and themes that don't treat the consumer like brainless amoebas, and to turn a company from the factory of sadness and disrespect into the happiest place on earth. But I guess that's just too much to ask. My name is Luke Nukem, and Disney, it's time to grow up.